Last spring I made a very enthusiastic video about the Thule Raceway Pro platform bike rack, and then somebody asked me to try it on my Dodge ProMaster van, and I thought it worked well on both my Honda Element and the Dodge ProMaster until I actually started using it, and then I had to take that review down. And here I'm going to show you the problem that occurred on both cars. First I'll show it to you on the Dodge ProMaster with the original rack. Then Thule customer service was amazing. They sent me a total replacement new rack which had the exact same problem. You can see the problems. Then I'm going to include the original 2 videos that were more positive, and maybe this will work on your car, maybe it won't, I don't know, but it did not work out on my Honda Element, and it was supposed to according to the manual, and my Dodge ProMaster was not listed. However, it seemed to work okay on that, except for it didn't hold on either car. Okay, so I'm having some problems with the Thule rack, and one is it's extremely hard to get it tight, like really tight. If I use all my energy and pull up and stuff, I can't get it any tighter than sort of tight, not as tight as I would like. Here's the real problem is if you're driving down the road and you hit some bumps and stuff and the rack does some swinging, it releases. So if I make that tight again and pull just a little bit, I'm pulling with 2 fingers and it's releasing. So if I go to this side though and I can pull as hard as I want and nothing happens. Something's wrong with this particular thing. Plus these are awfully hard to turn. Thule or Thule, I don't know how you say it, sent me a replacement rack, and I actually tried that on my Honda Element because it was definitely supposed to work on the Honda Element. And this is the replacement rack. So if I tighten this up, and that's as tight as I can get that one, and that's as tight as I can get that one. This is still pretty damn loose. So what I do is I push down and try to get a few more extra tightens by applying body weight. So this is applying all my body weight and might to try to get it tight. And now, you know, it's fairly tight, but it's not great. If these were straps, I would have no trouble getting this perfectly tight. But now here comes the problem. If I'm driving down the road, it loosens up. So the next thing I did was move the lower straps, which were going towards the outside of the vehicle, to go attach to the very middle of the vehicle. And that's fairly tight. No, it's not. But that's as tight as I can get it. And with that much play, as you're driving down the road, it loosens up. So Thule eventually said the rack would not work on my car, and I got my money back. But I am pretty disappointed because I really wanted this rack to work. It's so much easier to take on and off than a hitch-mounted rack. Anyway, here are the original videos, and you can watch them, and maybe it'll work on your car, maybe it won't. Hey YouTube, I bought a Thule Raceway Pro platform bike rack which holds 2 bikes. And the 2 bikes sit in a tray at the bottom of the rack and are held by the top tube by little claws like at the very top. And the reason I bought this rack over the old style rack with the 2 arms that stick out and then the bikes slide onto here with the top tube resting on top of the 2 arms was because most of my bikes are mountain bikes with full suspension, and I don't want the shock on underneath the top tube resting on the arm, or I don't want to try to feed the arm between the shock and the frame, and I don't want to buy the adapter that they have that runs between the seat post and the handlebars. So the rack comes pretty much completely assembled, which is nice. The rack is fairly heavy at 34 pounds, 13 ounces. The instructions are excellent. I just had to find my car under Honda and then Element and then look down on that sheet and see that I had to open the rack to the number 11, which you do like this. You flip up these 2 levers and you just open the rack up, and then you look down at the side there, and when you get to the number 11, you close them back up. Over on the right hand side there are a bunch of fit tips, and if I look at the ones for my car, it said to attach it to the top of the trunk hatch, and don't use your rear window wiper. Put the lower arm of the rack on top of the bumper. The lower clips can't really hook onto the bumper because it's plastic, so they are supposed to hook onto the center toe loops located underneath the bumper. So there are some little things you pull up on, and then you can pull out the wire in order to get some slack, and then you can put the rack up on the car and hook it to the top. Then you turn that little round dial on the outside to tighten it up, and you do the same thing on the other side. Unfortunately, you can't see the dial because it's behind the little arm. Then the two lower cables don't attach to the bumper like I was hoping they might. They attach to a center toe loop. Both of the cables attach to the same hook. Then there's these two little levers you use to release the trays down. There we go. So once you have the trays down, you want to lift up the arms all the way up before putting your bikes on. Also, before putting the bikes on, you want to put these little straps onto the rack bottom. So the next thing you do is just slide out the little tray end to the length of the wheelbase. Then we put the bike on the rack and strapped it down with the wheels and also up at the top with a little cloth. Then the next thing we did was we spread the tray out. Unfortunately, I spread it out in the same direction, off to the left, and that proved to be a bad way to go. Okay, we have the rack on, and what we found is we had to slide the back bike as far left as we could and slide the inside bike as far to the right as we could so that the handlebars and seat cleared. We had to face the inside bike that way in order so that this clamp didn't clamp onto the shock. This is clamping in a good place, but the shock is down there, so it's not a problem. Everything seems good. It's resting on the bumper. It's barely putting any pressure on the back of the window. I don't really like the way these lower straps had to be routed to the tow hook there. So instead of being spread apart, they go down and come to the center. The 2.8 tires on my Sherpa go all the way to the very last notch of this. I don't think you possibly could fit a 4.0 bike on there. This is 2.8 tires in the tray. These straps are not as stretchy as many we've had. This is very hard to remove. Not terribly hard, but sort of hard. These little levers here, this one was very hard to pull apart. That one wasn't hard at all. There is quite a bend to this tray. I don't know if you can see it. You see how much that tray is bending? That's kind of worrisome. This is much better than the type where you have a couple arms that come out from the thing and have to stick through here and stick through here, which is not a problem on this bike, but it's a definite problem on this bike because you could have an arm here, but then you can't have an arm here, so then you have to buy one of those cross pieces that comes across here, and then you hang your bike from the cross piece and it hangs lower. This is quite high off the ground, which is nice, so we shouldn't hit anything with it. These are very hard to turn, and this locking thing is, I understand why you need it, but one of these, when I pulled it out, would not release because there's like a piece of rubber on top of a piece of metal, and the piece of rubber extends well beyond the piece of metal. So when I pulled it, the rubber was pulling out, but the metal wasn't, and it wouldn't release. It wasn't until I reached my finger way in to get underneath the metal that I could get this to release. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with it compared to other racks. Okay, with the road bikes we had to stagger the outside one way to the left and the inside one way to the right, or the seats and handlebars hit. And on this one we had to drop this lever first and then slide the bike forward because you can't pull this lever up without hitting the seat. so kind of a pain. I don't think the bikes are going to rub together at all. And there's no swinging like on the other type of racks. Alright, here's something that's kind of a pain in the ass. I want to release this one and fold this rack up. And if I pull one, that's locked. And I got to release, and now that one's locked. Okay, now I got it. It's like you need two hands. It was too bad these aren't somehow tied together. Alright, I folded it all up, but I forgot to put these arms down, so I got to unfold it. Which definitely is not easy to do. Put these arms down. I can't keep them both open. I guess I gotta pull up like that. Alright. So to release these, we need the keys to unlock this. And this side. And now I gotta pull on this lever. Pull on that lever. It's to come all the way down. I guess all I need to do is be able to release these. So there we go. So that's it. All in all, I'm quite happy with the rack. Thanks for watching. So that was the original video, and here's the one on the ProMaster. So I got a suggestion to try the Thule rack on my van, and I like that idea, so let's give it a try. Okay, that's as far as that will pull out. That's as far as that one will pull out. That's as far as the bottom one will pull out. Question's going to be, will this be long enough? Oh, I think it'll easily fit. So it actually fits. It seems fairly stable. You could mount it higher if you wanted more ground clearance. The bike is leaning out quite a bit from the car. So I'm going to mount the second bike and see how that looks. So that actually works pretty well. I don't know if I use different settings, if the bikes would lean out less, but I wouldn't want them to lean out a whole lot less because you don't want the handlebars to touch. Let's see if you can still open the door. A little wobbly, but I think you could take up the wobble, but it's really hard to turn these levers. Probably best to do it without the weight on here. But I cannot turn that one, and I can't turn that one. So I'd have to take the bikes off, and I think I could get this tighter. This is pretty loose. I would say that works, and that works quite well. The one bike is sticking out beyond the car. I probably could slide it a little to the left. I have plenty of room to do so. Let me do that. So now I have this bike moved as far back as I can, and the dropper lever is touching the seat, and this dropper lever is touching that seat, and the wheel is still good 8 inches maybe off the end of the car. I think it works quite well. By the way, I figured out something with these little levers, is that they won't release if there's pressure. So if I do that, it's pretty easy to pull up. If you push up and then pull, and push up and pull, they release very easily. Another thing is you really only need to undo the upper strap to release the rack. Enough to remove the cords at the top, and then you can remove the ones at the bottom, or vice versa. I think I'll remove the ones at the bottom first. Nice. One thing I forgot to mention in the first video was that the bikes there's a lock on these things that would lock the jaw onto the bike, and also these cables cannot be removed if this is locked, so the door won't open and you can't remove the cables. But these are so thin, I wouldn't trust them not to get cut by a thief. I don't even trust this cable here, which is much, much thicker. Thanks for the suggestion, and thanks for watching. So in conclusion, I really wish this rack had worked out for me, but it just did not hold on my car. Those ratchet things really don't seem to be very good. I'd rather have straps.